Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the live event for version 25 of the Google Ads API. I'm Mattia Tommasone, as you can read here, and I'm a developer relations engineer working on the Google Ads API. You've probably seen my face already if you've been following these live events. So let me pull up my slides and let's get started. As usual, I like to start with a bit of information about our release schedule. It's been a while now since we moved to monthly releases, and we may have news coming up in the future about this, but no spoilers. Anyways, this is the 7th release of the year. It's a major release, which means that there can be breaking changes in it, and we'll talk about it later. But also next up, the August release is going to be a minor release, V25.1, which means that we are only going to be adding new features into it. No, we're not going to be breaking anything. So if you upgrade to V25 now, you'll be safe for a while, or at least you will not necessarily have to change your code for a while. Speaking of events that make you change your code or your implementation with the API, we release new features on a regular basis, but we also sunset older versions of the API on a regular basis, and there is a sunset coming up next week, or it's in 2 weeks time actually. It's in early August. It's in the first week of August. V21 is going to be sunset, and just like every other major version of the API, its lifespan was about a year. So it was released in summer of 2025 and it's been sunset in August. The same goes, of course, for V25, which just came out yesterday, and it's going to be available to you up until summer 2027. So again, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you want to upgrade to V25 right now, that may be a good idea. Also, something I also like to do when starting our live events is to give you some updates on things that are not necessarily strictly related to the API, but are happening around the API. So today, this live event is going live on a series of channels. As usual, we're going live on Discord and on YouTube, but we are also going live on the LinkedIn page for Google Advertising and Measurement Developers, which is our brand new page on LinkedIn, where we will not only host these live events, but also provide, updates and communication about everything that's going on in the advertising and measurement developer community. So not just the Google Ads API, but also the other APIs that my team works with. So for instance, the Data Manager API, the Analytics API, and so on. So follow the page, you'll be getting updates, and also you can follow our live events on there if you are not going to follow them on Discord or on YouTube. So I have Discord on that screen and YouTube on that screen, which is why I'm saying Discord there and YouTube there. So plenty of channels to be following our live events. Also, as usual, I tend to keep the structure of these live events consistent because I think it works. But also, let's talk about this. If you have any feedback on the structure of these live events, since the structure has been the same ever since we started doing them, let us know. Again, on Discord, YouTube, LinkedIn, send carrier pigeons, whatever. Let us know what you think about these live events. If you like the structure, if you would like to see more of something, less of something that we haven't been talking about, let us know. As they say, feedback is a gift. But as I was saying, one of my favorite parts of these live events is actually taking a quick look back of features that were not part of the version that we just released, but were recently released. So I'm going to take a quick look at features that were released last month as part of V24.2. There's a few interesting ones, so I want to reiterate them. One of them is the support for multi-party authorization reviews. So this is about account security, and it means that when an administrator is taking a sensitive action on an account, so for instance, giving access to another user or creating an account, we are now rolling out a feature where these sensitive actions will require authorization from a different user, so that one single person cannot, for instance, add administrative access to an account, but it requires two-party authorization. So there's a new resource that was released in V24.2, which is called Multi-Party Auth Review. And it's exactly about this. So it allows you to retrieve pending reviews, to mark them as completed or denied. And this was such an important change that we also released it to previous version of the API. So it's also available in V21, even if it's going to be sunset soon, V22 and V23. So if you don't want to upgrade your whole applications to V24 or to V25, you can just upgrade your client libraries and keep using V22 or V23. I wouldn't recommend keeping using V21, but still, you can just upgrade your client libraries and you would have the multi-party authorization review support available in your API. Another feature that we released last month is support for two new experiment types. So if you remember, we added a bunch of new experiment types in V24.1 in May, but we felt like we weren't done. We just added two more last month. And these are compare campaigns, which lets you compare campaigns against each other so that you can decide which campaign type is the best for your goals. And also the PMAX text customization funnel URL expansion, which is a bit of a mouthful for a name, but it lets you split traffic within a single PMAX campaign to test the impact of the text customization and final URL expansion features. So you can have, data-driven a data-driven approach to deciding whether or not these features are for you or which campaign type is the best for you. So experiments are all about getting you data to inform your decisions. Also, last feature that I want to highlight that was released last month is the support for synthetic content declarations. So there's a new European Union regulation taking effect in a few days' time, so on August 2nd, and it will require users advertising in the European Union to actually declare whether their assets were AI generated or not, so if they were synthetic content or not. As of V25, this field is now fully mutable, which means that you now have support for declarations in this sense. You can declare whether or not your assets were AI generated or not. Keep in mind that this will not affect the ads delivery in any way. It's just a matter of, complying with the European AI regulations. But in terms of, will this affect how my ads deliver if I declare that my assets were AI generated or not? The answer is no. No changes are going to be made on how your ads are going to deliver. Now, I've covered everything I wanted to cover about previous releases and about things happening around the API, which means it's time to start diving into the new features. It's time to start diving into V25 and into everything that we just released as of yesterday. So, if you've been following my live events, you know that my thing inside the Google Ads API is video. In my team, we have experts around specific areas of the API, and I'm the video person in our team. So whenever we have new features in the video ads space, I'm always happy because I may have some personal involvement in these. And I also often like to highlight these features in our live events because I know that video as a format is something that you as developers are willing to use more and more because they are very effective. So I also like to highlight the video features, not just because I usually am involved with them, but also because I think as developers you may find them useful. So the first one that I want to highlight in V25 is a new segment that lets you get reporting for specific format types in YouTube Shorts. So you can now get your metrics for YouTube Shorts segmented by the length of these shorts. So you will get different metrics and different segmentation for YouTube Shorts ads that were longer than 60 seconds, between 30 and 60 seconds, and below 30 seconds. So this gives you increased granularity when reporting on video ads. However, you have to be aware that this new segment must always be selected together with the ad format type segment and can be selected at different levels. So you can get this segmentation at the customer level, at the campaign level, at the ad group level, and on individual video assets. just keep in mind that if you select segments.add subformat type, you also have to select add format type. So you would get both segmentations, like the general add format segmentation, but also the more granular subdivisions for shorts. We didn't just add a new segment for videos, but we also added new metrics for videos. So with these new metrics, you can get the number of interactions that your video ads got on YouTube. So you can get the number of comments, of likes, and shares that your video ads received on YouTube. And just as the add subformat type segment, these metrics are also available at several different levels. So customer, campaign, ad group, and on the individual videos, so that you can get as granular as you want to get when measuring how many interactions your video ads got on YouTube. Then, as I was anticipating, V25 is a major release, which means that there can be breaking changes. And a breaking change, for instance, is when we remove features from the API, or at least we change fundamentally the way they behave. So in this case, we previously deprecated in the past the customer lifecycle goal and the campaign lifecycle goal resources. And this was because the new customer acquisition implementation has been moved from these two resources to the goal resource. So if you have an implementation that supports the new customer acquisition goal and you were using the customer lifecycle goal and the campaign lifecycle goal to manage this implementation, you have to migrate to using the goal resource, which is where the new customer acquisition goal now resides. If you are planning on implementing a new integration that supports this goal, I would recommend you just start using V25 now and use the new structure so that you don't have to make changes later when V24 is going to be sunset and the structure that we now released is going to be the only one available. Finally, last feature that I want to mention in this release is a new asset automation setting. Asset automation settings are also a feature that I usually like to highlight in our lives because I think they're very useful. This one is also about an area that I'm usually personally involved with, which is demand gen. And it's an asset automation settings that generates animated images from other assets, which may be video cuts or combining together different image assets to generate animated images. So it's enabled by default for demand gen campaigns. And if you want to have this animated images feature, you just don't have to do anything. However, in V25, we also released this so that you can have control on whether or not you want to have it enabled or disabled. It's enabled by default, but if you want to disable it, this is the asset automation setting that you should be looking at. Now, these were all the features that I wanted to cover in V25 and the main highlights. As usual, we published a blog post on the Google Ads Developers blog that has a few more highlights, but if you want to actually take a look at everything in detail that we released, as with every other release, there's a release notes page on the documentation website, and that is the source of truth for everything that was released in V25 yesterday. So this being said, it's time for my favorite slide of the slideshow, which if you've been following our lives, you know that it's always the same, and it's my Q&A slide. So let me just look around at my different screens and see if I have questions on Discord, which I don't see, or any questions on YouTube, which I also don't see, but I see a comment on YouTube that says, "Well done, API team, keep up the great work." I swear it's true. I'm not making this up. So thanks for this. I really appreciate it. So I don't see any questions on LinkedIn either. And as usual, when I don't see any questions, I always wonder, is that because I have been so clear in my explanations that there were no questions? Or has it been because I was so obscure and so not understandable that people are just puzzled and cannot come up with any questions? I guess I'll never know. Oh, feature request from JC on Discord. Can we get account level policy warnings added to the API? Right now, we only see the suspended status when it's already too late. Being able to query at-risk statuses would let us automate alerts and fix policy issues before our clients' ads stop running. Managing hundreds of clients so emails can get lost. Thanks. This is actually an interesting feature request. I'll put together a feature request and relay this to our engineering team because it makes a lot of sense, and I totally understand that you would like to be warned before a suspension, and being able to pull the status of these warnings with the API would probably be helpful, especially because it may be the case that you may not necessarily be seeing the emails, of course. We usually recommend that you always have an email address that you have access to and you keep looking into for notifications like this. But I understand that sending out notifications like this in as many channels as possible is going to be useful. So yeah, I understand why you're asking for this, and it makes sense. So I will relay this. Oh, I also have a question on YouTube that says, is the API going to change now that LSA is going to live in PMAX? I think that by LSA you intend local services ads. Yes, I think so. I think we're adding support for local services ads in PMAX soon, if we haven't already. I would point you to the release notes page to see if this was added already. If not, I guess that it's gonna be coming soon. All right, I'm gonna keep looking around for a while to see if there are any more questions. So I see nothing on Discord, nothing on YouTube. LinkedIn is quiet. So yeah, I guess that's it. Let me see if I have any more questions here. Looks like I don't, which means that we can call it a day for this month. And I guess I'll just see you next month for the V25.1 release. As usual, if you have any other questions, any other feedback, our Discord server and our new LinkedIn page are there exactly for that purpose. So just let us know. Oh, I see someone typing on Discord, so I'll just wait a bit. So, oh, it was just a thanks. So yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you, sir, for the question, and thanks for the appreciation. And thank you all for watching this. It's been a lot of fun as usual. And yeah, as I said, I'm going to be seeing you next month. Take care. Have a good